Well, thanks, Juliet. I'm Will. I'm an alcoholic, and hey guys, Toledo, Ohio. Um, Thanks, Sean, for asking me. Um, just real quick. Well, the last time I took a drink was March 29th, 2005. So no booze or drugs since that day. And I was born in Seattle, grew up in Toledo. I feel like I was sort of a normal childhood. I don't know. I don't feel like I can point to anything super dramatic that was that I would point to um, as maybe a source of my problem. But I, I was a kid who was kind of off the wall, kind of hyperactive, whatever. But I don't know. I was one of those kids who everyone said like, "Oh, you have a lot of potential." I heard that a lot, and I sort of, uh, I never felt like that. I mean, I kind of did, but I kind of didn't. And I was a good student. I went through school kind of well, and then I don't know what happened, but I just know that somewhere in high school, like end of grade school, high school, I started to like feel like the light kind of went out of life, and it was sort of like I don't know. I was just a kid who was, before I ever got drunk or did anything, I needed it, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what I needed. I didn't know that that's what I wanted. But the first time I got drunk, I remember who I was with. I remember where I was at. I remember um, mixing it up and putting my arm around people. I remember, waking up the next morning and saying, where am I going to do that next weekend? Um, and in Bill's story on the first page, he says, there's a sentence. He says, "I discovered liquor." And like normal people don't discover liquor. Normal people they find alcohol. It's a thing. It's kind of like, oh, this is cool or whatever. But for me, alcohol was a discovery. This was like something that like I was missing. This was it was a revelation. It was like where for me the way I felt when I got drunk for the first time was like, where has this been all my life? I've been wasting my time sober. I've been trying to get by, and I've been walking around watching these normal people pay their taxes and do their homework and do all this shit, and I don't understand how they do it without going crazy. And that's the way I was. I was inside. I was a restless, irritable, discontent kind of guy, and but I felt this burden to try to show up and do all this stuff that you're supposed to do as like I saw my friends doing, but I just became a fall down, blackout, wake up with mysterious bruises and scrapes, no shoes, alcoholic very quickly. I didn't waste a lot of time developing my alcoholism. I just kind of got like right into it. For me, the way I looked at it was like, if I have found like the best thing in the world, like why am I going to deprive myself of this thing? It's like, how much sense does that make? So I basically, I start drinking on the weekends. Then it's like, you work a weekday in, and then you get a lot of weekdays in there, and then pretty soon, without really paying a lot of attention, I'm drinking every day, and I drank every day as much as I could because, like I said, wasn't trying to deprive myself of, anything that was going to make me feel good. And in Dr. Bob's story, he just says like it was like the panacea or it was a sort of cure for human ills, and that's the way he looked at it. And I was the same way. So, but from basically the first time, I just it's later I read the book, and I just identified with it, but I didn't know anything about the phenomenon of craving. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff, but I knew a lot of times to not start drinking unless there was enough, or because for me it was just acting naturally, like to drink like that. It was acting very naturally for me to just drink until the lights went out and I fell on the ground. So that's the kind of person I was. That's the kind of drunk I was. And I started to go from I went from it being fun. I heard a guy say this, and I relate to this. It was fun with problems, and then problems and suffering. And at first, it was incredible upside, very little downside, very little in the way of consequences. And the consequences that came were still actually kind of just fun and funny. Like I didn't mind that like I lost the car or like couldn't find my shoes or whatever. But like eventually, as alcoholism progresses, for me, things got worse. Things got worse externally and internally. I started to wake up with images in my head of things I had done the night before that I didn't like, and they weren't really a joke. And I had to think about it, and I had to I started to, like I said, come to in weird places. I started to do things where you're no longer welcome at that place anymore. And like, you really can't face those people after what you said and what you did. And those things started to accumulate. I went to college, went to this like good, like liberal arts college, and, got kicked out the first time, within the first semester. Took a year off, tried to relive my senior year of high school with all the kids who are a year younger than me. Didn't work out very well. Went back to college, got kicked out again. I got kicked out of college. That was a normal thing. But I couldn't deal with it, because the truth is, when things got tough and I had to like turn in my assignments or do the thing whatever the thing I had to do was, it was just easier to drink. And I remember I had this one memory. We had this psychology class, which I loved psychology. That was like my ended up being my major, and they taught it in sections. So they had a different teacher teach like, each section. And I remember I showed up one day and I had missed an entire section. I was just like not going to class. And then I remember I walked into the room, and seeing the registration on my teacher's face of like, who is this person? Like, why are they here to take the test? Just like, I don't know why I thought about that, but I just became a very unreliable, very out of control person. And anytime somebody tried to come and talk to me and say, "Do you think you have a problem with this?" It never made any sense to me. The idea that drinking or drugs or any of this was a problem made zero sense. It made less than no sense, because for me as an alcoholic, alcohol was the answer. Alcohol felt on a deep inside level like, this is the best thing I have going for me. This is the answer. This is what makes life actually kind of bearable. This is what makes life really good, actually. And every drug I found was sort of a different tool tool for living. So I didn't, I would just, if I needed to stay up or go to sleep or whatever, I didn't care. I would do anything. But I am a guy who, from the first time I drank, had an unusual reaction to alcohol. It just always seemed like a good idea to have another one and just keep going until I was in a puddle on the ground. But I also found out that during I was in college that I couldn't seem to stop. I tried. I developed this reputation. They called me Hands and Knees Will, because I used to crawl around on my hands and knees up and down the hallways of the dorms because I would get so drunk. And I was trying to stop. And I went to my first meeting when I was about 18, and I told everybody, hey, I'm getting sober. I'm going to stop doing this stuff. And I was for about, a few days, and like right until the point where somebody offered me some booze about 3 times. And then first time I said no, second time I said no, third time I just said, give me that, and so I understand what the book is talking about when it says, we have this mental obsession, and just we have this, and I had a sponsor who said, an obsession isn't necessarily just that you're thinking of something constantly. It's an idea that outweighs all other ideas. So for me, the idea that going to drink is a good idea is like jumps to the front of the line and just like seems like makes the most sense. And it makes the most sense in circumstances that like for normal people, it would not. So, I flailed around in and out of treatment and, programs and meetings and so forth, but I never really connected with any of this. I thought AA was this don't drink kind of club where everybody just patted each other on the back and told each other, come back next week. And that's great. And that's about as much as I thought it was. I didn't know it was like it went further than that. And just to be quick about it. I mean, one of the things I learned was I ended up going to the whatever treatment center out in Arizona, in 2005, and I got for the first time, my family was done with me, everybody was done with me. I really didn't have anywhere to go, and it started to dawn on me that that was right. That I really shouldn't be welcome anywhere. I had used up the people around me. I had, broken my word to everybody. I had, I was dangerous and I wasn't trustworthy. And for the first time, it hit me that, people who are doing the right thing don't end up in these situations over and over and over again. And that this was my fault. Like I had been steering the ship of my life, and this was where I was. It was almost like a 12-year-old version of me took a step back and saw the 22-year-old me and didn't recognize himself, So I got reintroduced to recovery, and the first time it started to sink in that it was a change, and it was a way of life, and it was something more than just not drinking. And I got reintroduced to AA, and I started, I got a sponsor, and read the book, and he said, read the book and just underline what you relate to. Anytime it says something about alcoholism, ask yourself, is that true for you? And anytime it says we did this to recover, ask yourself, am I willing to do that? And so I stopped underlining the book because I was going to underline everything, and I had to ask myself up front, am I willing to do the stuff this is talking about? And the truth was, if it was going to make my life suck 1% less than it sucked at that moment, I was willing to do it. Because we talk about the externals of the external consequences of drinking, but really the thing for me, it's the bottom for me, and I think for most of it is internal. It's when you get to a place where it's who you are and what you're doing is so unacceptable that anything has to be better. That's a great place to be. Or when you're so exhausted with the way you've been living that you just come to a place of a little bit of rest, and you just go, I'm willing to go in a new direction, and I'm willing to listen to somebody, even if it doesn't necessarily make all the sense in the world to me. The truth is, like, my idea, the way I was thinking when I came in, initially a lot of it didn't make sense, but it just seemed like this couldn't make things worse. And lo and behold, all those things that I started to do, practicing the program, taking suggestions, started to move me in a new direction. And I started to realize it was a lot of what I needed. So anyway, that sponsor took me through the program. I had a lot of resentment towards God, and towards a lot of things. But I started to realize, I could come to my own terms of what a higher power was. I could seek, my own relationship. I could, I'd always thought of that. I like that parable of the blind man touching the elephant. There's like 5 blind men. They're all touching an elephant, and one is touching the leg, and one touching the ear, and so on. And they're all have their hand on something that's greater than their entire understanding. And they all start to talk about, well, what's the elephant like? And they start to argue amongst each other, when really it's something much beyond what you can express and put into words, and beyond any one person's total understanding. And I started to look at God or a higher power that way. And I just tried to start reaching out. And I just thought, I see these people who, have been, I knew this guy Dave, and he had been, he had been crazy. He had been really crazy. And he just impressed me so much because I saw the way he lived now. And, I just thought, if a guy like that who could come out of blackouts, in a hospital bed, charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, and do all the things that he had done, can get this, then maybe I can. And he would say things to me that were inconvenient, but I believe were true, because I just knew that you wouldn't take the time and energy to say them to me unless they meant something. So a lot of people inspired me, and I started to try to do what they did. I tried to, clean up my my life, take a look at myself, practice some kind of spirituality, try to be helpful. And a little bit by little bit, my life changed. And, you know, I'll just, um, I'll just end with this really brief story. You know, the last Christmas I was, out there, my grandmother was dying, and she had cancer, and she had dementia. And we went to go see her, and she didn't recognize anybody in the family. And while my dad was upstairs saying goodbye to her, I was downstairs in the basement, and I took a bottle, half full bottle of whiskey, and I filled up the other, topped it off with rum, and um, took it and I smuggled it into the car. And then I remember we driving back from Kansas City to Toledo, and I got drunk in the back seat of the car with my parents in the front seat, with this bottle like concealed in my jacket, just drinking, and I could not be bothered to be a part of life. I could not be bothered to be there for my family. I could not be bothered to do very much, and nor did I feel capable. And this last Christmas, I right before Thanksgiving, I got on a plane from Arizona, where I'd been living. My dad suddenly went into the hospital, and unfortunately, he didn't come out of the hospital. He ended up having stage 4 cancer. It was in his lungs, and it spread to his bones. And I never knew my dad had never been sick before in his life. I never expected it, and he died. And my mom and I had COVID during that time, and it was just a really crazy set of circumstances. But I stayed sober, and I got to be there for my family and for my mom, and to show up for life, through something that that if I was, if I was not, did not have this program, if I didn't have recovery, I that would not be my priority. I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be able to be useful. I wouldn't be able to be there. And so anyway, I guess I'll just say, like, for me, this affords much more than just sobriety. Recovery offers, like, we get a chance to be useful and helpful, and form relationships. And Sean, I've known for a number of years, and I got to form all these friendships and be at this meeting with you guys. So anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for letting me share.